and another Quran study. This is a blessing of God that He has allowed us to be here, and that we need to be thankful to God. Inshallah, we'll be reading from Surah number 6, verse number 111. Uh, Before we go into this Quran study, I mean, I did a lot of highlighting. I see that, mashallah, the very critical elements of the religion that God is discussing here. And God discussed this kind of things throughout the Quran. But here God gives us, some vivid picture of this very critical element of this system, that this thing that can, you know, uh, bring somebody into the religion, and if somebody is not a submitter, if really understand this, can bring him to the religion, and if somebody is as a submitter, and if you stop believing in this phenomena, then this can even kick him out of the religion. As we know, the second surah that I think verse number 3, and I think I'm going to paraphrase that. The end of that verse says, and God says that from about the hereafter, they are absolute certain. And these are the people, the first category that God is describing, the believers and righteous, and they are certain about the hereafter. So being certain about the hereafter is a very critical element. Of course, when you're new in the religion, you probably just going to believe in God and believe in the hereafter. But throughout your journey, you have to become absolutely certain that that there is a day coming that we will be resurrected and be standing in front of God, and will be answering to everything that we have done in this world. And that thing has to be that we really need to know that these things will happen. It says, go into verse number 111. I seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected, in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. So the consequences of their own decision. Even if we send down the angels to them, even if the dead speak to them, even if we summon every miracle before them, they cannot believe unless God wills it. Indeed, most of them are ignorant. Uh, so, why would somebody? I mean, this is a very. I mean, this words have bothered me even way before submission. That why would somebody seeing the angels coming from the sky, and if there's a dead person, completely dead, and becomes alive, then, or any miracle, God says, if we summon every miracle before them. I mean, this could be any kind of miracle, like the story of from the Surah 27. God says that the one we blessed with the scripture says, at the blink of an eye, you can move I will move the whole palace for you. Any kind of miracle you can talk about. Then why would somebody is blocked from believing it? I mean, this is really, really obvious signs. I mean, what's the reason behind somebody? And that all it comes down to their own decision. That is the critical element of this submission. That if you decide to choose God, or disbelieve, and this is your decision, then everything will change. I mean, it's just like you imagine in your head something, and it will happen in front of you. uh, Anything that you imagine will happen. So this is what your decision is. If that's your decision, and everything we blocked for you to see, this is why many times then when we talk to people about religion and you show them clear proofs, once they have made their decision, no matter what kind of proof you show them, no matter how well you explain to them everything black and white, look, this is it, they would be denying. If it's raining outside, even you take them outside and they're soaking wet in the rain, and you tell them, don't you believe it's raining? And they'll say, no, I don't believe it's raining. This is awful. It really comes down to their own decision. So if we decide to believe in God and believe in the hereafter, then it's then God will test us. God will show us more and more things in these coming verses, that not just by lip service, because anybody you ask, do you believe in God and do you believe in Day of Judgment? They say, yes, we do believe. But then what happens? They are barred from from the submission or coming to God alone because they don't truly believe in God. So we need to check ourselves that do we really believe in God? Do we really believe in the day of judgment? Um, and then verse 112, Hadith and Sunnah fabrications by the Prophet's enemy. We have permitted the enemies of every prophet, human and jinns, human and jinn devils, to inspire in each other fancy words in order to deceive. Had your Lord willed, they would not have done it. You shall disregard them and their fabrications. Importer criterion. This is to let the minds of those who do not believe in the hereafter listen to such fabrications and accept them, and thus expose their real convictions. And the footnotes describes is um, the Quran provides a criteria that tells us what whether we truly believe in the hereafter or merely give it a lip service. These important criteria are stated here in the verse 1745 through 46 and 39, Surah 39, verse 45, and also 6, 113 through 115. Upholding any source beside the Quran reflects disbelief in the Quran. Appendix 18 also describes that. I mean, very, very clear. I mean, that Hadith and Sunnah fabrications by the Prophet's enemy. It's not by the Prophet or the people that surrounded him, the true believers they were with the Prophet. It's not fabricated by them or by the Prophet. These are the people that came 200 years later and start writing all that stuff that was. This is a very clear cut clue that how could anybody can follow that when nobody have written it for 200 years and now all of a sudden somebody comes in and start writing all this. I mean, what do you think would be the value of that statements that's written after 200 years? I mean, we cannot even remember what we did last week. We have to really sit down and think about what time did I wake up? What did I say? I don't even remember what did I say 3 days ago or 4 days ago. I really have to think. Maybe I may pick up few things that I've done it, but to the detail, everything exactly, it's impossible. If Prophet would have said something like maybe 5 sentences, and that was completely remembered, that could be one thing. But here, the 10 books, written so much stuff in there. I mean, a common sense person would like say this does not make any sense. I have the book from the God, from my Lord. It's very clear and explaining everything. Why would I even go to some source that is there's no certainty? There's all hear and say. Even the books themselves, the written, the writer has mentioned almost every hadith that is written. He gives the original book gives the background, the sources that he collected that book is from. Before every or after every hadith, he will write that I got this from this person saying that person, and it was a passing by, a sailor was passing by, and he heard from his grandmother. I mean, so many generations, at least 8 generations have passed, and you're putting your life into it. You only get one chance in this world where you have a clear revelation from God, and other sources just talking all the different things, and they don't even they contradict so much with each other. One time saying one thing and the other time saying one thing. On top of that, a lot of false things, bad things are written about the Prophet if somebody is really willing to read it. So God is saying we have permitted. It's not God is saying God has made them to do it. I mean, there's a difference between permission uh, and allowing someone to do it, and there's a difference between actively doing something. So God allows these things to happen, and this is in the past with pretty much all the prophets when they came, and whenever the devil and the bad people they try to change the religion, God has allowed it. There's a reason behind it, because the coming to the submission and the religion of God is by your choice, and this is how God's system is, that a person has to read, understand, evaluate, and pick the right answer by their own judgment. God has given us a brain and understanding, and God says in one place that I have given you, I'm paraphrasing, ear, eyes, and brain. So you use these and use common sense to evaluate the information that you have and make a right decision. That's how you come to religion, not by forcing somebody, not by putting somebody's gun on their head that don't you accept this religion. No, that's the whole reason God allows all this negativity to come in. So when you do the multiple choice questions, you have one question and they have four answers. Three of the answers are wrong and only one is right. So how do you pick the right answer? Not by just randomly selecting, you know, or you look at somebody else's paper and you just select what they selected. You read the question and you, by your understanding, you pick the right answer. This is why God allows all these hadith and sunnahs to accumulate throughout the years for the future generations. As we know that the population, even if you go into like 1800 or century, the population of the world was like barely a billion or even less than that. And go to 300-400 years back, the whole world population was like in millions. Now we are in nearly 8 billions. The most people that were supposed to come to this earth for this test was, this is where the beginning of it. This is where actually from now to like about 200 plus years, when the day will the day of judgment is, the most people, like I would maybe probably if I'm wrong, around 90% or even more people are going to come in this bracket. Before that, it's a very small portion of people that came before, because that was the whole thing, was to staging a set for the most people that were supposed to come to this world for their test, whether they truly believe in God or not. That is the whole purpose. That do we really accept God as our God or not? That's the core of this whole thing. And so God allows it right now at this time that we are sitting in, year 2021. I mean, all the things have been explained. The book we have from God is explained. The miracle has been here. The God has sent another messenger to explain to us. Everything is in detail. It's all up to us to whether we, after all this, if we still go the wrong way, this, I mean, even before that, I mean, people are judged based on whatever information they have. But what we have now, this everything is so precisely clear. And even after that, if somebody go off the right path, there's no one to blame except that person. And this person will realize when it's too late, when the angels will be knocking on your door, that it is too late that time. To You cannot tell God, I'm sorry, I repent. I mean, when angel comes to you knocking your door, I mean, then everything's black and white. But here God even saying that while living in this earth, if the angel coming down from the sky, dead talking to you, they cannot believe, because we are in a different dimension. When you come out of that dimension, then everything is different. So God saying that, how fancy words in order to deceive, and we see these fancy words, those fancy words, and the music that they play in the background. I mean, you look at any of the channels where they talk about a lot of, I mean, as a traditionalist Muslim, before, we used to watch these TV shows and these religious channels. Every time they take a break, there's a hadith pops up with the fancy, the way the background and the writing and the flowers, and then the music playing in the background, and the how softly and this they speak, and they pick up one of the best, these that they are like really really nice ones to, and then really play with your emotions. And we used to listen to this. You're like, wow, this is so awesome, this is awesome. Human just inspire each other with fancy word. Had God willed, they would not have done it. So God had permitted it for a specific reason, to judge people. Because if everything is like, if there was no bad stuff on earth, everybody was worshiping God alone. There was not a single negative thing. Nobody is stealing. No, everybody's purely obeying God. If a child born in this community, I mean, it has nothing to judge. Everything is right, black and white. Everything is all clear. The way we'll judge is that you have to have something that you're not supposed to do. I mean, if everything is all good, then there's nothing to be judged. So that's the whole system that we understand. That's why God allowed all this to happen, and it's all come down to us. At the same time, when God allows negativity to be flourish and be everywhere, at the same time, God sends you like a defender, a protector, who will protect you. And the protector we have is the Quran. for us to judge. It's not like God just let all these bad things flourish and then nothing is to for us to guide. It's like the Terminator movie that, every time there's the Terminator is sent, a defender is also sent with him. It's sort of that kind of theory that God give, and at the same time also God protects you with His angels. And beyond that, we don't even understand how God supports us. But it's this final decision that we make, whether after all this we still believe in God or not. And I have seen people there become after submitter when they start, disbelieving in the hereafter. That's a very very critical element. And when they start using other stuff as a source of religion, then then that's where they go off the right path, start going off, because you have to accept everything but God says it. God said, "You shall disregard them and their fabrication." So all we, as if you truly believe in God and you follow God, that's all we can be supposed to do. This is like a sort of commandment that you shall disregard them and their fabrications. All you can do is just give them the message, and this is in itself is a huge blessing of everyone, that we're not responsible for anyone. We are only responsible for ourselves. I mean, had this was not the case, imagine, God says you have to bring 10 believers. I mean, imagine how difficult it would be. We just give the message. Even messengers and prophets were not required to convert anyone. All their job duty was to deliver the message, and period. That's it. They were not. I mean, God even comforts in this, even in the Quran. God comforts the prophet that you don't worry about. Don't. I mean, I'm paraphrasing. What God is basically saying is don't depress or don't stress yourself. Your job is just to deliver the message. Just do your job. That's all. That's it. And, and what is all this for? The permission to allow all these fabrications to do is to let the mind of those who do not believe in the hereafter. That is the whole criteria. Because this one, believing in the hereafter, is locked in with believing in God. Because why would you believe in the hereafter? Because that's the day, Maliki Yawmiddin. That's when you will be standing before God. It's believing in the hereafter is locked in with believing in God. Who are you going to be reporting to? That's the whole thing. If your boss sends you in working for like 6 months in a different country and give you the assignments, and then after 6 months you're going to be coming back to your boss and reporting your work, that element will make you work your whatever assignment you have given. Because otherwise, if you don't believe that you're going to be reporting to your boss, then you will be just wasting your time. That concept is going to make you that whatever you're doing, that I have to do my assignment, and that's otherwise when I come back it will be huge pay off, because this is what my job is. So we are here in this world for a very very specific reason. So why God allows all this? For those who do not believe in the hereafter, listen to their fabrications and accept them. Not just listening, accept them, and thus expose themselves, their real convictions. So this is the whole idea of this. I mean, if you understand this, if their fancy words and even starts to inspire you, I mean, this is a very serious situation. It should not even inspire you. You should at this point standing at the point that when you hear this word, it doesn't even, that this is all wrong. I mean, even though if it's a good thing or not, that this is all their words, and if it inspires us, if it makes us wow, this brings emotions in us, and then maybe we'll start accepting all this stuff, and then we will expose our true conviction that maybe we were really not believing in the hereafter. Because the footnote says the Quran provides the criteria we truly believe, whether we truly believe in the hereafter. So this is the whole test. Like when you do the lab test, that tells you exactly what if you're doing the blood test, it will tell you exactly what's in your blood. On the surface, all blood looks bright red, but when you do the test, it will tell you how much sodium and what is you lacking, what is all the stuff. There's like probably thousands upon thousands of different elements right in that blood. There's like lab tests that you list upon list of so many different things, probably 1,000 things maybe, that, and on the surface they all look blood. So I mean, red. But God, this is the criteria, it will expose them. These important criteria are stated in these verses. So I'm just going to read some of these verses that like 1745. They're very, very heavy verses. You know, disbelievers cannot understand the Quran. Whether you read the Quran, when you read the Quran, you place between you and those who do not believe in the hereafter invisible barrier. See, those who do not believe in the hereafter. Again, we see the hereafter. This is. I mean, that's why when you read the Quran, the people, they cannot understand the Quran. They they will read the Quran and they will does not make any sense to them. It is because they don't believe in the hereafter. So a smart person, where do a smart person really start checking their own soul, that how much do I believe in the hereafter? What do I have to do to believe in the hereafter? And God, many places in the Quran, God gives us much more detail. How do you believe in the hereafter, and all that steps by steps. But this person basically does not believe in the hereafter. Then you have an invisible barrier that will that you cannot see, but there's a barrier between you and that person, and you can see it, but that person cannot see. If you really believe in the hereafter, you can see uh, when what is written in the Quran, and you will get the message. But a person who does not believe in the hereafter, no matter how much you scream at them, no matter how much you vividly with the pictures and everything explain to them, like a couple of weeks ago when mashallah, we did the Quran study with the monkey experience, very, very clear. I mean, somebody who does not believe in the hereafter will see that and will be like, oh, this is all nonsense. They will not understand anything that you try to, no matter how vividly you will try to explain someone, they will not. You can bring all the definitions and tafsir from the whole world, and whole people world, the smartest people can get together and try to explain, but you cannot. There's a barrier between them. There's like a firewall, not this regular firewall. This is God's firewall that nothing can penetrate through it. I mean, just think about it. You yourself is just a small person. God has protected this whole inner universe. How the big this universe is, the speed of light from one end of this inner universe to the other end of the universe. It's like, I don't know, like 92 billion light year, 92 billion light years will have to continuously travel to get to the other side. And that's just the observable universe. Maybe the inner universe is even far bigger than that. Maybe the light has been traveling when we haven't even seen the more galaxies. It could be even bigger than that. God has protected all that universe from the devil so they cannot penetrate through it. A projectile is sent to them so they cannot cross that. I mean, God has protected this whole universe with this barrier. I mean, imagine how easy is it for God to put an invisible barrier on an individual person. Just imagine that, you know. And then the Quran, the only source. That's it. It's very, very clear that we place shields around their minds to prevent them from understanding it. The deafness in the ears, and when you preach the Lord using the Quran alone, they run away in aversion. I mean, I've seen someone who does, uh, say that the circumcision is accepts it and calls this person submitter, and I try to evaluate that person as best as I can, and during the Quran study, I'm talking to this person, and I can see the message is not going through. I'm not claiming to myself to be a submitter, I mean, a believer, but there's a sense God give you in a different part of the Quran where you can see the mind of the other person, that the message is not going through. There's a barrier in between because this person has accepted another source beside God. That source is not from the Quran. And so basically, you may be, this is just a very visible, very obvious, uh, you can say, commandment that you accepted from another source. And what else you may be accepting, who knows? But you can see that it's very, very like dangerous to accept anything other than the Quran, because maybe it will divert you to the wrong path. Maybe it's not. But why take a chance? I mean, imagine you are just jumping off the plane and you have a parachute, and you will take every measure to make sure your parachute works 100%, and the reserve parachute also works. And you won't even if there's a small red light blinking on your parachute and maybe there's some malfunction, you will not jump. Oh no, let's fix that, because your life is depending on that. We have to take this example and take it to the maximum level, because you are here only for one chance you get in this world, only one chance. And you will do your best to, even just as a tiny red flashing LED light on your this suit, you will like, oh, back off, just take it out. I mean, I will focus on the Quran. That's it. No matter anything I don't see in the Quran, I'm not gonna accept it. What if that takes me off the right path? What if that kind of mentality, God sees that mentality in you, and maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong, but that mentality will take you to in a, I mean, you may make mistakes, but God sees your more innermost intentions, that you are trying your best to follow the Quran alone, and that's the whole thing. We do make mistakes, but the innermost intentions are the one that is counted. You know, somebody who's maybe doing right, but his source was wrong, and that source says the same thing in the Quran, but that person accepted that source from another place, and that's the whole thing. That I'll share you one example. When one time I was in school, I was doing the math test, and so there's a question about some calculation about the math, and I did the math in my head, and I wrote the answer. That answer was right, but my teacher crossed it. He said, "I want to see you. How did you get that answer? The steps you took." So he crossed it. In another test, the same teacher gave me another question, and this time I did go through the steps, but I ended up making a mistake somewhere in the equation, and then put the wrong answer, got the wrong answer. But he gave me the points. He said, "I saw your steps. You did the right steps. It's somewhere you made a mistake. Your answer was wrong, but your step. That's what I want to see. Your steps were right." So that's the whole mentality. Your formula should be the Quran alone, and that's it. It's very easy. You just don't accept it. You don't even want to argue about it. When you argue about something, oh, and debating, you are debating against God. Who knows more than God? When God says just follow the Quran alone, that's it. We just don't argue even about it. The minute you start arguing, we start going against God, and you don't want to do that. We have a clear example of a deep debating with the messenger when everything was clear, black and white, and what led him to completely off the right path on the other side. And you at that point become an invisible barrier between you and the right path and the Quran, and you cannot see it. And you in this little world, and that little world that's all you see, and that's adorned in your eyes, and you see yourself the best righteous person for the time being you're on earth, until the angels knock on your door, and when you see the invisible barriers is removed, and now you see the clear picture. It's too late. It's too late to come back. So this is the whole criteria that God is teaching us, the belief in the hereafter, and how it starts off from the Quran alone, and all these things that God is giving us. When God alone is mentioned in the hereafter, the hearts of those who do not believe in the hereafter shrinks with aversion. But when others are mentioned beside Him, and they become very satisfied, and we see that very, very clear in the whole world. I mean, the minute you start mentioning the prophet or saints or their beloved ones, their face is like sparkling with the joy. But when God alone is mentioned, they say, "Where's God? Where's prophet or something like that?" And, Day of Judgment is like Day of Judgment. So basically, one person can ask themselves, do you believe in the Day of Judgment? Some of the questions that the person will probably say, yes, I do believe in the Day of Judgment. The second question would be, how strong is your belief? And they said, yeah, I'm very strong. I do believe in the Day of Judgment. Are you really serious? Are you dead serious about the Day of Judgment? And this person probably will be carry on to that point and will say, yes, I am dead serious. I do believe in the Day of Judgment. Okay, then what are you doing about it? Is there anything you're doing to be saved on that day? That's where complete silence. There's nothing. You know, when you live, day by day. When you really believe on the Day of Judgment, the minds and thoughts should come into our head more and more often. Every time you do deal with anything, when you really believe in the Day of Judgment, you always this question will come into your mind that I'm going to be standing in front of my Lord, and what I'm going to say. I mean, every decision will be based on the righteous decision, that I don't hurt anybody, I don't steal anybody's money, I'm a very honest, I do my best to be there as much as I don't lie to people, you know I don't cheat on people. These are just the humanity basis, and the religion wise, that am I accepting any other source beside God? How I'm going to answer on the day of judgment when He sent the messenger who's been so many Quran studies and sermons. He was never tired of saying, we only follow Quran alone. We only follow Quran alone. And how could you even miss any of that and then you accept something? Or many, many other things that if you really, really, we do a lot of fantasy imaginations, we fantasize. Sometimes we just lay down, we're fantasizing the vacation we took, and we play that in our head, and it just gives us good feeling. You're listening to music, you fantasize about being like anything that you're on a vacation, or you're on a cruise, or any other kind of fantasy that it gives us good feelings, and we enjoy that. Uh, but imagine, do you ever fantasize about the day of judgment? Being like, that's why it's so important to meditate. I mean, I'm spelling some, I just typed it real quickly, so ignore the spellings. Uh, I fantasize, mashallah, about the day of judgment, like when you meditate, sometime when you're alone, just kind of fantasize about this. It's like a huge, huge, huge ground, flattened, like there's not even a single hill, and you're in that, and this is the day of judgment. It's so chaos that people are running around crazy, and people are screaming, shouting, blaming each other, and people are crying, and this is it's really hot. You can take whatever the elements from this earth that we experience and apply that to that fantasy, uh, and people are sweating, people are thirsty. Whenever have you ever experienced the days when you were really, really thirsty, and the only thing that matters to you at that time when you're severe thirst, just a sip of water. Nothing will excite you. Even somebody give you a diamond ring or gold, it will not value you at that point. You just want some water. It's simple thing that we just take it for granted. You will be like, whatever you can do. I mean, if you're traveling in the desert, you know, it's a very, very horrible feeling when you really that thirsty. So you think about, people are severely hungry, people are severely thirsty. It's dust, hot dust is blowing, it's touching your face, and you don't have shoes, as the ground is hot. Whatever you can imagine, and then putting yourself in there, in that picture, and then imagining what. I mean, imagine that the recent picture we saw from Afghanistan, that I mean, it was heartbreaking to see that the environment was so chaos that the plane is taken off and people are holding down to the wheels of the plane just to be safe from that environment. It will take them to that point that a plane is taken off for a safe place, and then you just can't do anything to get on that plane. Imagine that. Now picture that, and imagine that in the day of judgment. There's a plane taking off with the believers sitting inside. You want to be in that plane, because right here, even though if you don't get on the plane, you have a life, you can do whatever here in this world. I mean, you don't have, the doors are not closed on you. You can still go and live in the world, or you can go other ways to get out of the country, or whatever you can do. But on the day of judgment, if you are not boarding on that plane where the righteous people are boarded, there's no. I mean, you would be like desperate to see those believers that they're saved, and you want to be desperate to be in that company, but it's too late. I mean, you take these graphic pictures and imagine as a fantasy imagination and play. So the point I'm trying to make is, the more you imagine about the day of judgment, and I know it's not a good feeling, and God has given us very vivid pictures in the Quran about what a day of judgment is. The more you picture, the more it can start giving you a mental image in your brain, and it's like building like a huge like a resort or something, that it brick by brick, the more you imagine, the more it's going to become clear and actual picture in your head, and the more it will put fear, and more the priorities will be set, and you'll be more believing in the hereafter, and then it will lead to. That's why God mentions all these verses about the day of judgment and the hell, because the more we read it, the more the mental picture will become vivid, that we will come to the point of certainty that this is really going to happen. I mean, how do you convince someone? You don't just say that person, like, like you want someone to go with you somewhere, and the person tell you flat, I know I cannot go. The more you convince that person, the more you talk to the person, at some point this person starts from complete no to like, okay, maybe I should go, maybe then it comes to 50%, and then the person say, okay, yeah, let's go. So that journey took so many convincing. So when you read and imagine and fantasize about the day of judgment, I mean, what happens? It's for the good. I mean, so that the negative force will push us to the right direction. Inshallah. Summary 30 minutes. So it's 36 minutes. I should know. Maybe I can read these two verses. But I will. Okay, I'll explain you. I mean, I will not read these verses because this is a very very critical situation. I'll give you an example, which I, mashallah, used in one of my sermon. Imagine there's a spaceship that's taken off, and we have seen a lot of movies where they go in the future. And I mean, I know you know that it's not possible. But for example, if there's a spaceship and then they're telling you that you can get on board and it will take you in the future in the day of judgment, and you can visit, you can actually see the day of judgment happening in front of you, and so that you can take some heat and be more responsible. And you get on the board, and then it takes you on the day of judgment. You're sitting in that plane and you see the people outside, chaos and all that stuff. Just imagine whatever you can. Information is in the Quran, and then it will put a lot of fear in you, so much fear that you will be telling the person who's controlling let's go back, I want to go back, I want to change my life today, you know. But they say, no, wait a minute, we're going to go to the hell after this. So they take you to hell, and you see the hell, the iron pots, melting iron pots with the narrow entering and all that stuff that God talks about, the skin melting and all that stuff. You see, now I mean, there's not a scary movie in the world that can equal to this. You'll be like screaming, let's go back. I want to go back today to earth, and I want to change my life today 100%, because these images will haunt you for the rest of your life. You can make a change right now. But if I tell you that, I'm sorry, there's no ship in the world that can do it. So that is just a story. But then I tell you, for example, there's a movie. Actually, there's a movie, you can watch a movie in the movie theater, and then they will show you the day of judgment and the hell. What about that? And so let's go. You go in the movie theater and they lock the door. They say you cannot leave until you see the movie. So start the movie, and then you see the day of judgment. We have seen a lot of scary movies and things like that, and then you start watching that, and it's so scary that you'll be hiding between the chairs of the theater, closing your ear, because it's so unbearable to see. Because God says in Surah 22 that the day of judgment is so awesome that I'm paraphrasing, the mother will abort their infants in their wombs, and the people are talking like they're intoxicated. These are the graphic pictures God is giving us. So you're seeing that in front of you, the day of judgment, and then the movie goes to the hell, and then you see the hell, and then it just, that point you just want to get out of the movie theater and you want to change your life. But then I tell you, I am sorry, there's no movie available like that. But if I tell you there is a book that you can read that has all the information that the ship took, and the movie, this book has everything. You can read that book, and it will give you the far more detail. If your mind is the sky's your limit, that book will give you every single detail that you can read and change your life today to be saved on the day of judgment. And then at the 10, but this time I'll tell you there is a book. I told you about the ship. There's no ship, but I told you about the movie. Yeah, there's no movie, but then I told you about the book. Yeah, there is a book, and that book is the Quran. And the word of the Quran is the 7 oceans times 2 cannot contain the amount of information that book has. So if you see that from the Surah 27, the blink of an eye can move the castle palace. This book, God said, this book is also from the God. God says in several places, this book is also from God. So one would read that person can use that book to move a palace. This book is also from God. What can I do with this book? I mean, the sky is your limit. You can use this book to actually fantasize about the day of judgment. This is so that you will become absolute certain about the day of judgment. And maybe when you do fantasize, you have dreams. When you think about something, then you will have dream, and maybe God will show you dreams about the day of judgment that will even further move you towards the certainty, and because that's the point, you want to be absolute certain about the hereafter, because that will just completely change your life. So inshallah, I'm only read a few verses, but this is a very, very critical element for the religion. You once you come, that brings you to submission and keeps you in submission to the status of a strong believer to the point of certainty, and that's the path you want to take. You want to be like wishy-washy submitter, or just kind of limbo in such time of, oh yeah, I do my 5 prayers and I do the Juma prayers and that's it. Not in. You want to be actually doing as best as you can to be a good, not taking any risk, that because you only get one chance. Like the person jumping off the airplane, want to make sure all the parachutes are working 100% before they take off the jump, and all the trainings they can do. So we need to do our best to do so to be safe on the day of judgment, inshallah. And we'll stop here, and if you have any comments and questions, we can discuss. Praise God.
Thanks, brother. MashaAllah.
MashaAllah, praise God.
Great verses.
MashaAllah, thank you.
Yeah, mashallah, I didn't mean to scare you guys off, and some of you may be shivering with fear. But this is the true reality. The more we understand this, is this is it. It all comes down to this, that we're gonna be leaving this world one time or sooner or later, inshallah.
So yeah, like that example you said about the airplane.
Yes.
Like what's the airplane? The allegory, like?
Oh, the one like say from Afghanistan, they're taking off.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a fantasy, like we know that Day of Judgment, God gives us many examples. I mean, kind of picture of Day of Judgment, the righteous will be on the right side, they'll be away. So you want to be in that group. So it's not, I mean, I'm not saying that there's going to be actual plane taking off from the Day of Judgment, but kind of picture that the one we just witnessed a horrible scene, that people are hanging on to the wheels of the plane. I mean, this nobody could ever imagine. The newscaster was saying the history is being made with these pictures. Like, we have never seen anything like this before, that the place so horrible that the people are like trying to get off whatever they can, and they know that this is not going to save them. There's no oxygen up in the air. But it's just to give you a little picture of, on that day the disbeliever will be wishing we can be among those people, those are being saved. I'm not saying they'll be actually playing.
Yeah, it seemed like the only people the Taliban were allowing to take off were the men. There was not a single woman. They wanted all the women to stay and cook for them. But I guess coming back to the example, I mean, I kind of got carried away with the example, but it if you do think about it, I mean, the hereafter, the people in the purgatory, will be annexed into heaven. So I guess you could kind of equate that to the plane. But people who go to heaven directly, I mean, they depart now. When they leave their bodies, angels invite them and they go straight to heaven right away. So like, I don't even think that you could compare that with anything other than just simply. I mean, like I couldn't even find an allegory to describe, unless like maybe if you were to give an allegory, maybe it could be like one of those time machines or things that you enter other dimensions, which is not really an allegory. But I mean, people think that they have to really wait and it's gonna be, like when you read the hadiths about the hereafter. First of all, like as you start to put them all together in a consistent story, it doesn't work. But even if you just inspect them like individually, they it is very clear from just reading them that these people who wrote them do not believe in it, or people who will believe them will not actually believe in heaven, because it is projected as something that's going to happen so far out. You're going to live for millions of years, you're going to stay, and then you're going to be woken up. Same for the disbelievers and even like the believers. Like there's no concept of you being in heaven as you leave your body right away. And they talk about the retribution in the grave, and how like they will be tortured for millions of years. And so like at that point, you just lose the reality of like how imminent this hereafter is going to be for you. I mean, when your time on earth ends, I mean, that's when your heaven and hell, I mean, in full force, I mean, begins. But I mean, of course, your heaven and hell has already begun now in this world as you decided to choose your path. You if you decide to be with God, your heaven and hell starts here. But then also, as soon as you die, your big retribution and the hereafter, which is a lot worse, starts right away. For the disbelievers, and for the believers, obviously they're in heaven. So it's not something that you would have to wait for. It's something that can happen anytime. And if you really think about it, none of us know exactly how many days on earth we have left. So it could, for many people, it could start today, in the next hour or two, even, who knows how much time anybody has. So likewise, we have to think about that, and we have to prepare for our hereafter. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. And then regarding what you said about the greatest criterion, and the sources, I mean, I like how they're so intertwined with each other, and how God has made the two so connected to each other. Is when you uphold other sources besides the Quran, you already set up idols in your life. All these sources that you uphold besides the Quran, end up uh, you know providing proof against that person, and ends up exposing them. We see people that are trying very hard to impersonate a submitter, like you said, the example you gave, but then they expose themselves so clearly without them realizing what they're doing, but they're totally oblivious to it. Like God says, Satan will make them believe that they're on the right path, and they think that they're the most righteous people on earth, and not even that, but I mean, just the whole self-righteousness just is too too much to contain. It's just overflowing for a lot of these people. which I find interesting. But yeah, I mean, all of these verses, mashallah, that you put together, I think, are a good reminder for us that, this is not like just the very idea of circumcision to a lot of people, sounds so unrelated. And they think, well, it's just one little thing. And, like I've heard these things from people saying, oh, it's just like one minor little thing. And why do you have to use it to cause division and stuff like that? But they don't understand, like just one hadith or just one source, uh, and one lie and one innovation, is all that it really takes to expose you. If you do that, you don't need, like, there's no such condition that says you have to uphold 10 different sources, or you have to find 10 different things, or at least 5 different things. No, if you find anything besides Quran, that confirms you as an idol worshiper. You don't need to worship 2 idols to be an idol worshiper, or 3. You just need one. It could be anyone, any person you respect more, and start following their orders. Like, it could be Rabbi Judah, or anybody for that matter. Someone in your masjid, or someone who you think is more knowledgeable than you, and they tell you that this is from God, and you start to believe it. That's it. That's all it takes. And if you are firm on that decision, I mean, that's all that it takes to block you. It could be circumcision, it could be something else. But the thing is that it doesn't need 10 or 15 different things. It can only be one thing. It might seemingly be small for you, but in terms of God, in God's eyes, it's not. Idol worship is a big offense, and Quran alone is repeated, throughout, is as important as worshiping God alone. To uphold the Quran alone. I mean, the difference between us, I mean, when I say us, the difference between a submitter and a true believer and everybody else, who calls themselves a Muslim, is that the true submitter upholds the Quran alone, and that's it. So it doesn't mean that there's like a threshold of how many other things besides the Quran you can have. You take one and you hold on to it, and you're out.
Yeah, I wanted to make a point as well about, a comment. Um, about Hadith and Sunnah fabrications by Prophet enemies, and um, so how the verse goes, we have permitted the enemies of every prophet, human and jinn, devils, to inspire in each other fancy words in order to deceive. Had your Lord willed, they would not have done it. You shall disregard them and their fabrications. This is to let the minds of those who do not believe in the hereafter listen to such fabrications and accept them, and thus expose their real convictions. So, this just tells you, obviously, you made a good point that um, that God does not intervene in the decisions what people make. That we have the free choice to, you know, choose God, explore the truth, and follow the right path. So this, obviously, God does not interfere in this either, because obviously Satan is constantly working against the submitters and against God's pure religion, and it creates all these, very interesting scenarios and fancy, literally fancy words and things to do, and which are very charming for people. And can you imagine how much of a majority of so-called Muslims is taken over by Satan just by letting them believe um, in other doctrines and then other than Quran, right? The fabrications. Those are started from the enemies of prophet, and obviously it only affects those who do not believe in the hereafter. They start believing in these, you know, uh, misdirections, or what you may call it, like a it's like a detour from the real destination, and they get lost in those things. And basically God says to expose them, so they are exposed. So you can identify who really believes in the hereafter and God by just, if you follow this criteria, and then the world is in front of you, and you will be able to recognize that, okay, these people do not believe in the hereafter, thus there. That is one of the major, God says, important criterion. So number one is that we must believe in the hereafter. So there, one is cross out of that list, which makes you submitter. And then worship God I mean, obviously, they not do not believe in the hereafter. They believe in, this is the criteria to distinguish. What I'm saying is that whoever believes in these fabrications does not believe in the hereafter. So that's why you will see people will say, I'm a Muslim, following hadith, and you will see doing all kind of vice, but still, you know, saying, oh yes, I'm going to masjid, I'm doing salat, I'm doing fasting, I'm doing tahajjud, I'm doing taraweeh and all that. But here, if they believe like that, they are basically non-believers. Absolutely. So that is, and they're missing a major part of the belief. And
I have a question. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question. Like, what do you guys think? If there's a masjid of a submitter, right? And then they say that they will allow just anybody in public to come and pray there, whether they're traditional Muslims or whatnot, and they'll just let them pray because they say it's a masjid of God, and they just open it up, and anybody comes, and idol worshiper or whatever, they just let them pray whatever way they want, without even caring to explain to them like what's the right way, and just leave the masjid open 24 hours a day, or like certain hours of the day for anybody to come and pray and go.
Right. Quran um, addresses this issue that they're not supposed to be entered in the masjid of God. So they are disbelievers. Then you can open the mosque for any religion than Hindus, and they come in the same category.
Mhm.
I
But yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, would you then, let's say if they choose to ignore your advice and say, no, this is what I believe, or we believe it's fine.
Mhm.
I mean, then would you consider going and praying in that masjid, or
That masjid has a problem.
right?
Um, like I know that some people try to do that in Toronto Masjid, and they immediately address that. A person came and said, "Yeah, so where can I do salat?" And then they told that person, ask him to sit down and listen to them, let them know what this masjid is all about, and they did their due diligence, mashallah.
Mm-hmm.
And absolutely, these people are definitely ignoring God's some of God's commandments.
Mm-hmm.
So I would not be comfortable to pray in such a masjid at all.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
Yeah, then what is the difference?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they will be facing the different direction for Qibla as well. Like, will
Mm-hmm.
they allow that?
I've seen it. Yeah.
Oh boy. Oh,
Yeah.
we have a major problem here then.
Yeah, I saw it, and then I stopped. I you know, had a final conversation with that person, and then I
Mhm.
stopped, you know, ever going there.
Good for you, mashallah.
Yeah.
No, we cannot see there. This is where when people start compromising a little bit. Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
Hmm.
No difference. This is God's masjid. Are are they worshiping God alone? Are you? I mean, what do you mean by that?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I find it very alarming that someone would be okay with that, you know.
I think they need to clarify to the person what this masjid is all about.
No, I mean,
And
it's like they allow, they basically like put it's somewhere on the internet, right? Everybody finds out that there's a masjid here, like when people are looking. So they just open it up and allow anybody to come there. Like, so nobody would be there to correct someone, or even if they're there, they won't bother. And they just let them come and go and pray if you're wearing a headscarf
oh
or whatever,
wow,
you know,
that is crazy.
because they say this is God's masjid. And they kind of like took uh, one of the messengers audio out of context, where he said his father was coming for a couple of months. You know, that was when he was telling him about submission. He was coming to attend the Quran studies, but he doesn't say anything about him praying there and stuff. So this person takes that example and extrapolates it to say that anybody can come in the masjid and pray whatever way they want to, whomever they want to, you know.
Oh boy, no, seems like these people are compromisers
Hmm.
or wishy-washy completely. Oh my god, no.
Yeah, mashallah. Uh, so the base file we're on this page. So I have a question that for sure we're not supposed to go to regular masjids, and but God used the word masjid. That we're not supposed to, pray at the masjid. That the bases are not, the base of the masjid is not built on the base of, paraphrasing God alone. But how about chapels in the hospitals where the multi people can pray? Can we go pray in that chapels? Because God is specific about the masjid, right?
I mean, if it's a place of worship, you shouldn't. In a masjid is a place of prostration, you know.
Right, right.
But if
Yeah, because
it's
God used the word specific masjid, yeah? So we have to go by that, right?
well, chapel. I mean, I think chapel is like a church, right?
Like multi people, they can pray. All the
Like
people
I
can
know
pray.
there's like meditation rooms and stuff, like right. This
Hmm.
Right.
meditation room and
But there's no one religion dominating
yeah,
it.
yeah.
You won't
Right.
see crosses there or something. I remember once at one, it was Phoenix Airport. Yeah, I missed my flight and I had to stay overnight at the airport. The next flight was not till next morning, and there was a prayer room, and I went to the prayer room. There were all kinds of stuff there, and also there were some, prayer mats, janimas,
Hmm.
sitting there, and and chairs as well. Like whoever needs to do some kind of prayer, they can have. So basically, it's a designated area for any kind of, like, this is not like a masjid built on based on idol worship. This is for privacy of the people, a designated room for any religion. So I thought that was a very good idea, actually.
Hmm.
Yeah, I do that. Use those chapel rooms in the hospitals, and some have the cross on somewhere on the side, but I use the direction of the Kaaba, and then I just do my prayer and leave. I'm just hoping that also repenting to God that God, you use the word masjid, but this is just a casual
Yeah, but
place.
you know, God also says you're not supposed to pray in churches.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
if place has name of Muhammad, something associated with Jesus, then you shouldn't find any room where you can do it.
So if they have cross, then it's still then we cannot, right?
Mm-mm. There's like idol right there.
Right.
Because why would you go in that room in particular? There can be any room then that you can do, right?
Yeah. Okay, mashallah. Thank you. I think the verse that you were mentioning was Surah 9, verse 17 as well. Shaitanir Rajim. The idol worshippers are not to frequent the masjids of God while
Yeah,
confessing their
disbelief.
disbelief. Yeah.
Exactly. Why would they be frequent? If one person by mistake comes, like in Toronto Masjid, some people came by mistake. They didn't stop them right away because that is kind of rude. And but right after they said, "Well, may we speak to you?" So they informed them about who can come here and if they win, and they would hand them some literature as well. So next time they clearly say that, well, it's okay that you didn't know, but now you know. So they don't come back again. Otherwise, it will be full of people all the time
Hmm.
because majority of those people. You can't say, "Oh, I'm not going to stop anybody from prostrating for God." No, no, no. You know who they are. Here, God is telling us what they believe, and God is exposing them. They do not believe in the hereafter. So, does not believe in the hereafter? All the idol worshippers. They don't believe in the hereafter. Check it out. They don't believe in the hereafter like God has described it. Some believe there would be intercession. It's not exactly what how God tells us in the Quran. The hereafter is absolutely 100% based on what you bring forth, you know, and you will be judged. There is a day of judgment. No intercession, and idol worshippers who maintain anyone who maintains idol worship um, till the time of death, and that's it, you know, khalas. Oh yeah, it's very clear. Quran is so clear. Another thing is that, mashallah, I just wanted to say, not to discourage, for example, but God, I think when we give too many worldly example to describe something of God's words, sometimes you can sort of get lost in the translation. You just it throws you off from the essence of the verse, and I personally find that I get lost in examples, worldly. The best example is when God gives an allegory. I mean, sometimes if there is a complex issue, we can sort of to demystify it. We can give an example or two. But if we constantly explain God's verses by, there are not many examples sometimes that can actually justify the word of God. So I'm just personally saying that maybe when we do give an example, the verse really needs that example to uh, for easy understanding. Otherwise, it's like God says Quran is easy to understand and fully detailed. The detail is provided by God. We just sometimes explain it in simple words, but too many examples if we give of this world, it's sort of, I feel like I kind of get lost in the translation and don't remember what the verse was about. Just my own personal take on it. Thank you.
Yeah, mashallah. The other thing that nowadays you have Google Map, so when you allow your masjid to be used as a masjid, so when people search, masjid, then your place will pop up, and that will bring more people into your place, and pretty soon it will not look like a regular masjid anymore. Because we have one masjid, like before when I used to travel, and as a regular Muslim, I will search at Google, and then there will be like so many pops up. There will be like a room just devoted, rented, and anybody can come anytime, and people are coming in and out and doing their salat. So then your place will be used a lot more by idol worshippers.
Yeah, definitely. It's an open invitation. Come on. It's like, popes allowing homosexual marriages in churches just to have the people coming in, Next thing is we'll be like at the end of the day, like the hat will be coming in for donations. I mean, are you people pleasers or God pleasers? One more verse I wanted to point out, subhanallah. Um, 114, it says Quran fully detailed. And shall I seek other than God as a source of law when He has revealed to you this book fully detailed? Those who receive the scripture recognize that it has been revealed from your Lord truthfully. You shall not harbor any doubt. So, God is saying, here is my book which is fully revealed. And here we are, listening to fancy words of jinns and devils in the shape of hadith and sunnah. And subhanallah, it happens to be verse 114, which are exactly as many surahs in the Quran. So that verse talks about Quran being fully detailed. MashaAllah. Like these 114 verses are enough for you. Yeah.
Yeah, mashallah, isn't that amazing how God is so like when you read the verses and the numbering is like your heart starts to glorify God. I mean, like He planned everything so awesomely, mashallah.
Subhanallah. This is amazing that, in the sequence here in this surah, um, when, the book Quran, Hadith, and Islam, uh, I was translating, and when we were discussing this circumcision issue and all that, this is the surah that verse, first of all, verse 619. So here's the sequence. That is verse number 19. And it's, if you look at the footnotes, this verse proclaims the Quran as the only source of religious guidance. Those who uphold additional source, such as hadith and sunnah, lies attributed to Prophet, are defined as idolaters. Okay, and then the verse 638, talks about. Uh, so, okay, 638 talks about animals were among the creatures now. And then there is this 6114 in the same surah talking about the Quran's being complete and
Yeah,
fully.
638 says we did not leave anything out of this book.
Oh, we did not leave anything out. Yeah, mashallah, thank you. Yeah. So yeah, the 1938 114. What other proofs you want? Praise be to God. Remember, Salman, we were talking about these verses, and it was just like falling over deaf ears.
Mm-hmm.
Those who do not believe.
Yeah,
What does God say
we're
about such
talking
people?
to the deaf and blind.
Mhm.
Even if you read the verse 57, says, say, I have solid proof from my Lord, and you have rejected it. It's also talking about Quran.
Mhm. Subhanallah. Very
Yeah,
important surah, this surah 6. Lots,
yeah, and then
lots.
we have solid proof, and also in the fact that the messenger has given solid proof on all of the practices, right?
Yes. MashaAllah. Exactly. No, but Rabbi Judah is the pious one.
Comedy.
Comedy. These are Rabbi Judah. That's
Yeah, I
all.
mean, if they want to follow Rabbi Judah, they should really do it like the rabbis, you know.
Yeah, they say openly. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
you got it now.
Oh gosh. I know. Exactly. You want to do like that? Well, go ahead. Follow the
Yeah.
followers of Rabbi Judah. And every time they say his name, they say the pious. Make it more to sound it like more pious.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, honorable, personality we
Mm-hmm.
respect is that the pious.
Right. I mean, so and I mean they're going by the fact that everything. So basically, everything that he did, they basically validated because the messenger said that he believed in it. You know, I mean, the Quran says he believed in the mathematical code.
Yeah, in certain
So,
criteria,
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right?
But they believe that how could this how could a rabbi when the messenger says he believed, and how could he commit something that is an abomination? So like basically saying exactly everything the rabbi did. I mean, that
Yeah,
rabbi
yeah, yeah.
did not even believe Jesus.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
But like even Deep believed in the mathematical code, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean that we
Yeah, and
say
he said Adib.
Adib the
Yeah,
pious,
yeah,
There is a good example. Yeah.
a contemporary one.
yeah.
And the sad thing is, they argue about it. They defend. I mean, you're arguing against
Mm-hmm.
God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even though Rashad has mentioned his name, like he uh, contributed to something, does not mean he's a believer now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think it's unfortunate for other people that were seemingly on the fence, like are still on the fence in a way, but they are. But I mean, they became more convinced of circumcision when they were shown the article from Master Tucson. So all these people that were sort of uh, opposing it a little bit on the like behind the scenes, just sort of took the same stand as Master Tucson, and just fell the other way,
Mm,
basically also.
apathy,
Hmm.
don't care.
I mean,
God exposes them.
yeah. I mean, Master Tucson's stand is not even apathy. It's also confirming the same thing. Like this, it's confirming it like the Sunnis. And because the Sunnis
Mm.
believe it's optional.
Yeah,
You know.
Quran doesn't say it, but we're still gonna do it for health reasons. That some contemporaries said that.
Yeah, but then the Master Tucson is saying that if you follow Abraham, you will do it, but if
Oh
you don't
my!
do it, you will not be punished because it's not in the Quran.
Oh my God!
So they kind of bring you like 50-50, and then
Yeah, and but that makes it worse because
Yeah, that makes it worse.
because you're very pious then if you do it,
And
because
and,
you.
and they
right. Oh
they
Yeah.
issue
yes.
these statements, and people follow it. Like
Hmm.
they're taking contribution
Hmm. Yeah.
openly in misleading people in many things.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, once once you tell them that Master Tucson is wrong, Master Tucson is the idol, for a lot of these people. So
Absolutely,
once you
absolutely.
tell them that it's wrong, it becomes very difficult for them to believe.
Yeah, and Solomon,
So,
the worst,
yeah.
the dangerous part is they have become that authority to
Hmm.
issue statements so people can go,
Hmm.
okay, who would know more than Masjid
Hmm.
Tucson?
Yeah, but I mean, they were like that from the beginning, right? I
Oh,
mean,
of course, they want to have that
yeah,
position.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. I remember when you called that long time ago. What was it? the Vatican, and how many people turned against you? My
Yeah.
God. Yeah, not nobody can see when it becomes organized religion. There is always a problem,
Mm-hmm.
and every masjid has that potential to become
Mm-hmm.
organized religion.
Exactly.
They become a cult of their own.
Yeah.
It is
I mean,
so
especially now that they're
dangerous.
growing more, in numbers, you can see that
Uh-huh.
becoming more
Yeah.
obvious. They're
No, I'm so
becoming.
scared of those being part of
Mm-hmm.
larger groups now.
Mm-hmm.
Completely
Exactly.
scared. That's why I'm so unfit. Every time,
Mm-hmm.
every now and then, I was leaving, and now finally decided I'd rather be, absolutely. I
Mm-hmm.
cannot handle contradictions like that.
Mm-hmm.
It is a same cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Something will come as soon as, and people love to have, let's get that masjid going, let's that get
Mm-hmm.
masjid going, our own masjid. As soon as, whether they're 4 people, 10 people, want to have the masjid, they think, oh, this is the biggest, you know favor they're doing to God. As soon
Mm-hmm.
as that masjid, somebody becomes like, the leader,
Mm-hmm.
who's like, I don't know what they start doing. It's just very dangerous. Not that I am totally very scared of
Yeah.
this kind of, they
Yeah, because
they
I mean, we have
follow
we
they
have
follow
experienced
rules.
it.
Yeah, and they start making sets of rules.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't follow those rules, because you're only it's they it's like, then you will feel that tension.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's worse than having in-laws.
That's funny.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, you have to please them no matter what.
Yeah.
Or eventually you divorce them and you leave. Okay. You move on.
Right.
You rather be a nomad in a nomad
Mm-hmm.
land.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, we worship God alone and we submit to God
Yeah.
alone. So the moment,
Yeah. And we're
the
answerable to
moment,
God alone.
yeah,
Not you.
the
Keep your
exactly.
masjid. Like these people, what you were telling me about. My God, they have always been wishy-washy. They have absolutely
Mm-hmm.
shown no bone whatsoever in any decision.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-mm. They neither belong here nor there. That's not gonna work for a long time. Any
Mm-hmm.
any group who starts making their own things, making their own rules, starts making like start feeling important in a masjid or a group or something, uh, it falls over and
Mm-hmm.
over and over.
Mm-hmm.
You see any place, within one masjid you will see one group fallen and another group fallen, and oh
Mm-hmm.
God.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that, I mean, these kind of tests come to sift the believers from the disbelievers, right? I mean, and we see when the messenger of covenant was alive, he in his last sermon and his speech, his last speech, he was talking about how, Satan's point of view will be represented here, especially here, he said, which was Masud Tucson at the time, right? That these people will try to divert you. So it's like in his last sermon, he's saying people from Masud Tucson will try to divert you. And no matter who is saying this thing, you shouldn't believe it. And then 6 years after he dies, someone from Masud Tucson says you have to follow circumcision and distribute that information to everyone, every submitter in the world with these newsletters and website.
Oh my God.
And people are following it, so they failed their test basically. But the thing is, I mean, anytime there is a masjid or not, these, I mean, people will be tested. And when there's a group, people will be tested and sifted away, the bad from the good. And so, I mean, the messenger said that it's a healthy process. I mean, people that they call it divisions and stuff that happened, right?
It's
But
sifting. Yeah.
yeah, so he said this was a healthy process. I mean, all the bad elements will go, but eventually it will be a good thing. It will be healthy that the believers will be sifted out and separated. But eventually there should be, you know more people who will believe the truth also. I mean, obviously.
Yeah, but this process, yes, eventually people will be able to stand up to those who would follow any tradition.
Hmm.
You know, this
Yeah.
is like they follow their parents' traditions blindly. Now, whose tradition is this? Did Abraham say that anywhere? Did Muhammad repeat it anywhere? All duties of Islam
Hmm.
have been repeated in the Quran,
Hmm.
no matter what, whether some are in full detail and some are not in full detail, some are modified or not modified, still there.
Hmm.
But something which does not even exist, like a slight hint, which
Hmm.
which requires severing your part of your body and even putting an infant's life in danger. How would God miss that?
Hmm.
Or prophet would miss that? You know,
Hmm.
I mean, forget about prophet. Prophet has no contribution in Quran. It's all except writing. Obviously, they're blaming it to God. You
Hmm.
know, and just following Rabbi Judah said it, or go we follow the scripture.
Hmm.
Do you read that chapter? What nonsense is in there? That to get all the slaves, and you now Abraham is following all the slaves, and whether they want it or not, whether they are Muslims or not, he must perform circumcision on them, and he performed on himself. What on earth they are talking about? How could God not relate? God has given each and every example of Abraham's piety in the Quran, right? His solid conviction to God, you know, about God alone. And that would Quran be missing such a big example of God? That Abraham did his own circumcision to follow God's orders? Is such a big event would not be in the Quran? So you follow, God says, follow the religion of Abraham. Which is this? Salat, Zakat, fasting, Hajj. Exactly, messenger over and over and over went into that book repeatedly with titles, and they say no, but we are following Abraham religion from Bible. Quran is not enough. These people have gone backwards, way backward. Pagan, like all this paganistic. No such thing in Quran needs requirement of a body part to be somehow severed or sacrificed. How could God not mention that and leave it on you to find in the Bible? Gosh, the intelligence behind is amazing, man. There must be a lot more. There's some locks over there.
Yeah, mashallah, the surprising news would be if these people were absolutely devoting themselves to God and they were the majority, and that would be surprising that it any messenger and prophet you see, as soon as they leave, they start going the wrong path, and they're not the majority. As I was supposed to read that verse, but I'll just do a little bit. That's 116. God says, if you obey the majority of the people on earth, they will divert you from the path. That's another big clue that if you are part of the majority of, like, even the submitters, then that's give you a huge clue, mashallah.
Yeah, but some people think, oh, they feel safe with majority. Oh, but majority of submitters are going to this conference. We they like to be part of. It's the social wanting and desire of people, to be part of a group or something. They feel more, they belong somewhere. It's just whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that's the comfort zone. They don't want to leave their comfort zone, and
Yeah,
it,
and they
it,
will never stand up to them too. Like if
right,
they
right,
disagree with anything, they will just stay quiet.
right. You know,
when we were traditional Muslims and we go to the mosque and there are like hundreds and thousands of people. And when I mashallah, left the regular Islam, and I was like all alone by myself. And then after a few years becoming submitter, and we were sitting in a conference, and there were like maybe 100 plus people sitting for the Jummah prayer, and it was just like a old memories. And oh my God, I missed that. Sitting all these people when we were in the masjid, and we never had it for a long time. Now we see all these people, and they're truly God's worshipping people. But when then I see their inner side, then I said, again, it goes again. I'm gonna start leaving these people because they might divert me again. So, but it's better to be alone than with these people, and to worship God alone because you are not alone. The trillions upon trillions of creation of God on planet Earth, you see the birds and anything, they're absolutely submitted to God, and they don't disobey God. So you're part of that community versus this handful of community, whichever side you want to be, mashallah.
Okay, so should we end our study for today?
Yeah, inshallah. Are you leading the tomorrow, Urdu?
Who, me?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm
Salman,
just saying.
did you send the PDF version of Urdu Quran, or how would I how would I read it? Okay, I'll ask him tomorrow, inshallah. Then.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.